The translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are free from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. Everyone can please repeat. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and engage themselves in my service with determination. Those eligible for elevation to the transcendental position are mentioned in this verse. For those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the duality of desire and hate. Only those who have passed their lives in practicing the regulative principles of religion, who have acted piously, and who have conquered sinful reactions, can accept devotional service and gradually rise to the pure knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then gradually, they can meditate in trance on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the process of being situated on the spiritual platform. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness, in the association of pure devotees. For in the association of great devotees, one can be delivered from delusion. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2 that if one actually wants to be liberated, he must render service to the devotees. Mahat sevam dwara mahor vimukte. But one who associates with materialistic people is on the path leading to the darkest region of existence. Tamo dwaram yoshitam sangi sangam. All the devotees of the Lord traverse this path just to recover the conditioned souls from their delusion. The impersonalists do not know that forgetting their constitutional position as subordinate to the Supreme Lord is the greatest violation of God's law. Unless one is reinstated in his own constitutional position, it is not possible to understand the Supreme Personality, nor to be fully engaged in his transcendental loving service with determination. Om Jnana Timanandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Om Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Chaitanya Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Darati Shva Padantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadhi Pastyatya Dashatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here, most of us might have lost out on two counts. It says those who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life. So many of us may have missed the boat on both of those. No. But actually, the beginning of life is when one comes to Krishna consciousness, when one comes to God consciousness. That's the real beginning of life. Otherwise, just like there's a lot of movies about zombies and, and so considered to be a little bit like zombies. We're living, we're moving, but we're not taking advantage of our human existence, which is to go back home, back to Godhead. Generally speaking, many of you are young. When you're young, your life is full of all kinds of aspirations. Just like when I was young, I thought we would conquer the world for Krishna, and now I'm just concerned about controlling my mind and senses. So understanding how difficult that could be. So the world seemed to present so many opportunities for us. But one thing that society, in presenting all those opportunities, even in the sense of diet, just how one should eat and to be healthy. In the ancient Vedic literatures, there's Ayurveda. And Ayurveda says, even if you take the most nutritious thing, if it doesn't agree with your constitution, it will be detrimental, not beneficial. The most healthiest, scientists, like if you go on internet about any, this has been proven by 3 different laboratories, and then they'll give you a whole list of people who testify this is the greatest thing, but it may not be good for you. Just because an herb is generally beneficial doesn't mean it's good for everyone. And so modern society presents us with all these opportunities, but don't take into account one little tiny factor, which is called karma. What is our destiny? What are the results of our activities of previous lives that are causing us to think in a certain way, act in a certain way? Just like for any cause. Like right now in many universities around the US, they're protesting the invasion of the Gaza Strip. But when you do that, you automatically make friends and enemies. If you think that the Israelis have been overambitious, then you're anti-Semitic. And if you think that no, they did the right thing, they were justified, then you're pro-Muslim. And so in some people's minds, doesn't matter what you think, because how this world will treat us depends on other people's perceptions, not on the ultimate reality. Just like many people get accused in the legal system of something they never did, because there's either the evidence was not proper, or somebody's out to get them or something. But not everyone gets justice. Actually, very few people get real justice. And at the same time, we're getting perfect justice. In our mind, we may perceive that what's happening to me is unfair, not right. But according to the inviolable laws of nature, and according to the laws of karma, everything that's happening to me is perfect. That's a very difficult thing to accept. And therefore, by the standards of this text, to practice Krishna consciousness, we have to eradicate sinful activity. And first of all, we have to understand what is sinful activity. Just like yesterday in our parade, the float behind us, well, was supposed to be behind us, it got relegated one, was the meat market. So, and everybody is, oh, this is one, again, part of our society, is what we do. We kill animals and eat them. And it's very nice. They're tasty. And so that's normal. That's the perception. But the reality is, it's not food for human beings. It's food for tigers and other animals, not for humans. Not for humans who want to be progressive, and especially not for humans that want to go back home, back to Godhead, as is being outlined in Bhagavad Gita. So the point I wanted to reach is that when you want to live the absolute truth, and we can examine just a quick gloss of history, take Jesus Christ. He spoke the truth. What happened? Crucified. You just look, even outside the area of religion, uh, politics, if in any country in the world, your politics are too much against the system in charge, you will be dealt with. Any country, doesn't matter. Some are better than others, maybe. And some of them, if you don't agree with the policy, you immediately go to jail. And some, it looks like you're free, but if you do too much, there are certain ways of convincing you not to be that way. And that will happen. And it happened to Jesus Christ. It happened to so many, so many people fighting for social, political, economic reform. They're put into jail because it's the perception that will determine how society will deal with us. And so therefore, to practice Krishna consciousness, you're practicing, in one sense, you're practicing something that goes against the flow of modern society, although it's perfectly in sync with the way that all of us feel when we're touched by the mode of good, when we're touched by the desire to help others. We're influenced by by the natural sentiment of the soul, which is love. But of course, then we get into the realm of love. Very few people understand love. Well, most people confuse lust for love. Just like in the Vedic scriptures, it says, real love is like gold and lust is like iron. So both iron and gold are metals, but there's a big difference in how they're used and what their value is. Just like 1 kilo of iron, you couldn't get too much for it. 1 kilo of gold, nowadays you could probably live the rest of your life very comfortably. So the same, the gold of love, the gold standard of love, is that we love Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate object of love, the source of love. In some religions, they say God is love, but how can you be love? You emanate, love emanates, because love indicates a perfect interaction between two beings where both are completely satisfied. That is love. So how many times do we see that kind of love in the material world? Even with parents and children. Sometimes it's very difficult to understand real love. But real love comes from Krishna, where Krishna says so many times, even in Bhagavad Gita, what to speak of Srimad Bhagavatam, how he cares for the living entity. Apichet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananya sadvareva samantavya. That Krishna says, it doesn't matter what you've done, as long as you try to be serious in Krishna consciousness, I will consider you saintly. Doesn't matter what you've done. Of course, that doesn't mean you continue to do it, but and still Krishna loves us unequivocally. It's just that, as it says here, to be eligible for elevation to the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, one time, Srila Prabhupada, one of his disciples, he wrote to Srila Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, I could serve you the rest of my life and life after life. I'm totally sold out to you, but sometimes I don't get along with the devotees. And Prabhupada wrote back and said, that's a shame, because in the spiritual world, there are only devotees. So, otherwise, our conception of love has to include everyone. That's real love. If you have real love, no one is excluded, even the cockroaches, even of course, you may lovingly move them out. But that is the nature. So that's why Krishna consciousness is difficult, because it says here in the purport, desire and hate. Desire means what I want to, what I want to do or feel, that is okay. And this is the problem with modern society, that it's chaotic. It's based on my desire to do something, which is what is the cause of that desire? Uncontrolled senses, uncontrolled mind, a totally chaotic society that we live in that's based on superficial values. All these impositions are there. And therefore, to have a pure desire within the heart is not so easy. And therefore, practicing Krishna consciousness, there are 6 things that are recommended by Rupa Goswami. Does everyone know who Rupa Goswami is? He's a big, great, like Srila Prabhupada. Above Srila Prabhupada, there's so many masters. And the one master above all of them that comes right, the principal follower of Lord Chaitanya is Rupa Goswami. So Rupa Goswami says there are 6 things that are favorable for spiritual life. Utsaha nishtaya, enthusiasm, faith and determination, one item. Patience, following the rules and regulations, avoiding the association of people, as it emphasizes here, who are very materialistic, and following the footsteps of great saintly persons. These are the 6 things. But of the 6, the 3 initial ones are very important. Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm in spiritual life comes from what is recommended here, associating with devotees, meaning people who are more spiritually advanced than we are, because they will make intangibles become tangible. They will convert concepts into realities, just like the conception of humility. If I ask everyone in here, what is humility? There will be very different answers. But when we see humility demonstrated in a person who actually possesses real humility, we can understand it immediately. Just like Jayananda Prabhu, who the originator of the first Rath Yatras, made the first Rath Yatra carts and spent his whole life serving Lord Jagannath. Such a wonderful devotee. Srila Prabhupada said he went back home, back to Godhead. Very few people Prabhupada said that about. There were many people that left their bodies, but very few people Prabhupada said that about. He said if he didn't, he went to the heavenly planets to cast off some pious activities. No, because both pious and impious activities bind us to this world. Transcendental activities take us beyond this world. So anyway, Jayananda Prabhu, he was so humble that if anybody didn't want to do a service, like after yesterday, let's say everybody takes rest at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and then somebody has to get up and do the offering. Generally, there's not a whole lot of volunteers. But Jayananda Prabhu, if anybody would say, "Oh, I don't have time," so, "Oh, thank you, I'll have more service." And he wasn't doing that as a technique to get somebody to say, "Well, yeah, okay," although that happened many times. But he really meant it. When he was in charge of our San Francisco temple, 1968, he would be the first one up in the morning. He would get everybody else up. Then he would chant. He would usually chant before they got up. And then he would get everyone up. Then he would cook breakfast. Then he would give the class. Then he would drive everybody to where they were going to be chanting. Then he would come back and buy food for the next offering. And then he would go out and drive a taxi all day long to make money for the temple, because in those days there were no books. And so, no books to sell and everything. The devotees would collect it. So he had to go out and drive a taxi all day long. Then he would come back and cook. Then he would serve everyone prasadam. Then he would clean up the kitchen. And then he would take rest after everybody else went to bed. So that was how you could practically see the results of his humility, of his dedication, of his determination. So all these things, just like intelligence, of course, we all tend to think that I have great intelligence, but really to understand intelligence, we have to see it manifested in different people, and we can see how their brain power may be greater than mine. And then to understand what is real intelligence, that we can understand from Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna demonstrates real intelligence on the platform of the second principle, faith and determination. Nischaya. Krishna says that that if one is actually has faith and determination, they will always follow the principles of spiritual life, no matter what. And when we see that manifested, again, with the association of devotees, we see people who, in spite of all the challenges in spiritual life that come, not because Krishna wants to challenge us, but because we are matter addicts. We're addicted to matter. And in the material energy, we're addicted to matter in the form of objects, just like I see everyone everywhere nowadays with their cell phone. It's like the second brain, or maybe the first one, I don't know. But it's like just I call it the black hole myself. They talk about black holes where it sucks in everything. I see how their consciousness gets sucked into the little machine, and then you get reality as per whoever set up that program. And so we have, and then attachment to the energies of matter, passion, ignorance, and goodness. Just like yesterday in the parade, everybody was enthusiastic. That enthusiasm wasn't coming from the mode of goodness. No, it was coming mostly from the mode of passion and ignorance. No, drinking beer, or no. If they would have been going to work on that day and they saw us chanting, they probably wouldn't have had the same mood. But so influenced, when something is influenced by the mode of goodness, the result is permanent. When it's influenced by passion, it's temporary. And when it's influenced by ignorance, it becomes even destructive. So this establishing faith and determination in spiritual life is very important. And that also happens by associating with devotees, because again, the majority of people in our society, although most of them well-meaning, most of them have less than desirable habits. And even many of us, most of us have less than desirable habits, but we're trying to give them up, where others are trying to reinforce them. Like vengeance. Vengeance is considered very important in this world, but according to Bhagavad Gita, it should be avoided. According to the Bible, it should be avoided, not just Bhagavad Gita, according to many scriptures. So, how do we have establish our faith and our devotion, our determination in spiritual life? Is again by seeing people who are very determined. who have given up certain aspects. We don't give up material life. We give up the material conception of life. You can't give up material life. We have a body, we have family, either parents or children, husband and wife, or boyfriend and girlfriend. We have family and friends. We can't give that up, but we can purify it. And the whole purpose of Krishna consciousness is to purify our actions and our thoughts and our words. But sometimes that's difficult because there's many concepts nowadays. Most everything is based on the body. Just like we have a teacher here. And for someone who teaches, they generally don't get paid that much, isn't it? No. They don't get paid as much as people think they should. And but someone who can kick a little ball around expertly, they can make $200 million in a year. But if you're trying to teach giving transcendental knowledge or even just academic knowledge, you can barely get by. So those are the values of the society we live in. In 1975, I gave a lecture to the VFW Lodge in San Antonio. Veterans of foreign wars, a bunch of old men who fought World War II at that time, most of them World War II and the Korean War, and a few of them the Vietnam War. So I was thinking, what am I going to tell these people about Krishna? As I looked out there, and so then I said, I thought, well, let me try. I said, our Constitution is based on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Isn't it? Yeah, yeah. I said, so what is life? And I explained a little bit of life according to Bhagavad Gita, general term. And then liberty. I said, liberty means to go beyond the impositions of others. Yeah. And so then I explained that a little bit, that in modern society, we're being influenced by so many bad things, bad qualities, and, bad habits. I spoke about that. And then the pursuit of happiness. And then I explained that real happiness means that it always exists and it always increases. So I said, how many of you have that kind of happiness? Nobody raised their hand. I said, that's what we offer. We offer to fulfill the American dream. But the real American dream, according to our forefathers, who were looking to change life, to stop oppression, to have real freedom. Anyway, I spoke like that for a while. And they actually stood up and clapped and everything. Clapping, of course, can be confusing. Just like one time, there was a family of mosquitoes. And so the little baby mosquito was just getting ready to go out on his first flight. And so the parents said, be very careful with the humans. They'll try to kill you. So after some time, he came back, a big smile on his little mosquito face. And he said, oh, no problem. No, actually, the humans were very nice. He said, as I flew around, they were clapping. So, anyway, apparently these people were satisfied. So, so the point is that, we perceive things according to conceptions that have been given to us. And real Krishna consciousness, in its purest form, is not so easy, not because it's difficult. Prabhupada said many times, what is difficult to say? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, which is all you need to be Krishna conscious. You don't need anything else except a change of consciousness. You don't need anything else. And changing consciousness is just not that easy because we are addicted to matter. And we're addicted to things that we've heard, not in this lifetime, but many, many, many lifetimes. Those impressions, those karmic impressions are there within our subconscious. And they will come out. And especially as one becomes purified, just like when you're sweeping the floor, if this floor were very dusty, so I begin to sweep, but as I begin to sweep, well, one feels more congestion because all the dust that was sitting on the floor is now in the air. So also when we began the spiritual life, all these karmic impressions that are stuck in our subconscious, as we start to chant and we start to serve Krishna, they start coming out just like dust in the air. And so it feels like something's going wrong when actually it's going right. Because I'm having to confront things that have been there in my consciousness, subconscious mind for who knows how long. And now they start to come out. And until they're all gone, then I probably won't be very successful in spiritual life. And so these are some of the things that I wanted to explain, because sometimes these challenges come before us, just like in anything. How many of you are students? So you get challenges every day, right? A new quiz, a new subject matter, another course you have to take, and you have to sit and study when you'd probably rather just go out and do something else. No. The senses and the mind will say, no, it's a nice sunny day, no. Let me go out and go to the river and swim or whatever. And but your sense of duty will say, no, I have to study. So that challenge is there in Krishna consciousness, not only in learning about Krishna consciousness, but practicing Krishna consciousness in a society where people don't practice Krishna consciousness, a society where people practice what they want to do, what they perceive in life, the conservatives versus the liberals, and this one versus that one, and this country versus that country. Just like in a few months, I go to Ukraine. And once I go to Ukraine, I can't go to Russia. Or if I go to Russia, I can't go to Ukraine. Because if they see that stamp in the passport, they say, you went to Ukraine. They're our enemy. So I'm supposed to go to both, so I have to get another passport to be able to go to the other country. Once I get that passport. So anyway, the point is that any position you take in this world will create some dissension, some opposition. Doesn't matter what you do. Krishna says, Eko bahonam yo vidadati kaman. I'm the only person who can satisfy everyone's desire. But even though that's Krishna's position, some people negate his existence, say God doesn't exist. No. Even though he is that one person who can satisfy everyone's desire. But the difficult, and one may say, well, what about my desire? I want this and that. I have a whole list and, desire. But Krishna satisfies the desire of the soul, which right now is hidden in our heart. Sometimes it comes out. We get inclined to the mode of goodness. The soul becomes closer to the surface and cries out, you should do this. You shouldn't do this. But then the modes of passion and ignorance cover it up. No, do what you want. Do what you like. And then we become bewildered. So the last principle of the three first principles that Rupa Goswami gives is patience. We should have to be patient that our spiritual life will unfold. I can guarantee you in my 50-some years, 51 years of practicing Krishna consciousness, there have been many times when it seems difficult to proceed, right? Isn't that ever happened to you? I think it's happened to everyone. So because we live in an environment that is not favorable for Krishna consciousness. And even though in this country we can practice, even yesterday people were cheering us on, if we give them a Bhagavad Gita and tell them we should follow these 4 regulating principles, let's see how many cheers we get for that one. It's like we're giving to society that which nobody wants. We're distributing books saying, please do all these things which go totally against what you're doing right now. And so it's not an easy task to practice and to teach Krishna consciousness. But Krishna will help us. And what we're doing now, satsanga or sadhu sangha, is the real solution, as much as possible, to get together, not necessarily always in the temple, but to know other people, other devotees who are spiritually minded, and try to get together as much as possible. And that will enhance our spiritual life, our spiritual progress. Otherwise, as soon as you go out this door, the mind takes over. Immediately. Now I could do this. Now I'm free. And so I remember that when I was a young brahmachari, I sometimes go out on Sankirtan, and the mind, it was difficult to distribute books sometimes. Say, well, maybe you should just go back and do this and do that. And immediately the mind takes over. So therefore, in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, and I'll just read the 2 verses and I'll conclude with this. So this is verse 5 and 6. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. So that is our challenge. And the mind is the crossing point, the juncture between subtle and gross existence. The mind is meant to accept things which have been processed by purified intelligence. And because the function of the mind is to accept and reject. So on the basis of what does it accept and reject? On the basis of our intelligence. So however our intelligence has been trained, that will determine what will be the basis of my mind's acceptance and rejection. So if the intelligence is influenced by what we call the ahankar, false ego, thinking I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm an American, I'm a this or that, black, white, yellow, whatever, then our intelligence will not be pure. Our intelligence will be thinking in terms of the body, of my country, my family, and therefore it'll be very difficult that we all agree. But if we all agree to everything on the platform of the soul, where we're all equal, then it's much easier to accomplish something. And whenever in Krishna consciousness we can't accomplish something either individually or as a group, we can understand it's just the mind. The mind is acting on impure intelligence, which is being produced by an impure conception of life, that I'm something other than a spirit soul. And therefore, the senses will ultimately gain control of the mind because of the impure intelligence. But when the intelligence is pure, because we regularly hear Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, we chant the holy name of Krishna, we associate with devotees, then our intelligence will become purified and the mind will accept and reject things on the basis of a purified intelligence. And just like Krishna says many times in Bhagavad Gita, which sometimes we find to be a little challenging. Don't do this. Don't do that. Shouldn't do this. You should do this, which I don't like to do. And so it becomes difficult. But if we associate and if we purify our intelligence constantly, and Krishna says, what is pure intelligence? Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam dam yenam mam upayanti te. Purified intelligence means that intelligence which manifests when one is always engaged in Krishna's service with loving devotion. That intelligence will help us do the one important thing in life, which is to go back home, back to God. Everything else is superfluous, except that which contributes to that finality, because that's the only success in life. Otherwise, we'll have to take another body and have to deal with material nature again. And if we're not careful, that body will not be equipped with the necessary tools to take up self-realization. So there's no guarantee. So anyway, these are some thoughts on how we can remain steady in Krishna consciousness, which is very, very important, because many people come, but they're confronted by their own past, and that past takes us back into the past, and our future becomes our past, instead of our future being our now. The future should be what I can do for Krishna in this moment, and that's a continuing future which will increase and which will purify our existence. But it's not easy. And it's not easy because it's not easy. It's not easy because the difficulty is within, right between these, the ears and right in this area. That's the whole difficulty. That my brain, my consciousness has been rewired and to think in terms of matter. And when you think in terms of spirit, then everything becomes wonderful. So these are some thoughts on this subject. Any questions, concerns?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said that we often think that we have to be love, but we emanate love, and we should love everyone, right? In essence, how do you love Donald Trump or Hitler or like an evil stepmom or somebody that was really mean to you? I mean, how do you love those people that hurt you the most?
Well, first of all, we can understand from Bhagavad Gita, the soul or cut or dried or moistened or burnt. And so I can never be hurt. I can only be hurt psychologically, which means that my mind is weak. If my mind is weak, then I can be hurt psychologically. If my mind is strong, I cannot be hurt psychologically. So, but that's easier said than done, because we're very much influenced by our psychology, and our psychology is becoming, we're trying to spiritually orient our psychology, but it takes some time. How do we love Donald Trump? Well, we can always remember that he facilitated the first Rath Yatra in New York. So he did a little service. And because this is a biblical principle. It says, hate the sin, not the sinner. So the Bhagavad Gita explains that in chapter 5, that everything is happening by the modes of nature. So we don't blame a person for what's happening. We blame the modes of nature. when we go beyond the modes of nature and we see things beyond the modes of nature, we don't see an evil person. We see someone who is under the influence of matter. And we expect that whatever they're doing is quite normal. I wouldn't expect them to do anything else. I wouldn't expect Hitler to think in a different way. I wouldn't expect Donald Trump. And some people like Hitler or Stalin, their bad karma is combined with a need for the world to make a change. And that happened. But that's not easy to understand. Even Einstein, who was of Jewish origin, he could not understand the Holocaust. He could not understand how a personal God could, even though he read Bhagavad Gita very frequently, he couldn't understand how a personal God could allow the Holocaust to happen. Because he's thinking in terms of my society, my people, my body, my religion. And so whenever we think in those terms, even in the noblest of mindsets, the noblest of mindset is right here in Bhagavad Gita. But we find Krishna preaching peace on the battlefield, which seems to be a bit strange. I'm on the battlefield teaching you how to be peaceful. But that just shows the nature of transcendence. The nature of transcendence doesn't always harmonize with what we see as transcendence. What we see as good may not always be good. It's good according to the way I've been, conditioned. Just like for Donald Trump, good means that I'm in charge of everything and I make everything happen for my benefit. But that's actually everyone's mentality to some degree in this world until you become purified. You're always influenced by what I want until we actually have very pure consciousness. We'll always be inclined to do something according to, even if it's a very subtle thing, that subtle thing will figure in. And that's why even in the mode of goodness, people sometimes they try to help people, but they want others to appreciate that they're helping people. Where in transcendental consciousness, it doesn't matter whether they appreciate me or not. I will do what is proper. Just like Prabhupada says so many things in Gita that some people don't appreciate. But he's doing it in terms of the absolute truth, not in terms of what what will be popular or not popular in the minds of others. He's speaking the truth. When we speak the truth is usually, in most cases, especially in Kali Yuga, not very palatable. When you get down to the nature of truth to the absolute degree, it's not palatable. Even the truth about myself, according to my own evaluation, is not always so wonderful. I know what's going on in my head and my heart, that may not be so pure. And, if I'm Krishna conscious, I try to avoid it. But it's not always so easy. Is that okay?
Yeah, it works with me.
It's not easy. It's not easy to love someone that does everything 180 degrees against what I consider is to be proper. But then we have to understand that Krishna, with his superior intelligence and through the demigods, is making things happen according to the ultimate benefit for everyone. But we may not be able to see that. Just like a child, the classical example of a child will never, you tell the child, you see they're running and they're going to fall down and scrape their hands and their knees. You know it's going to happen. You tell them to settle down. Are they going to listen? No. And then when it happens, they come crying and they want you to immediately solve it. Take away the scrapes, take away the bruises, take away the pain. It's totally illogical, but that's their reality. So our reality in this spiritual infancy is that we see things in a certain way, and it should be like this. And why do the devotees think like this? And why don't we like these people? Why don't we agree with this? And it's all due to our attachments. When we have no attachments, then we will see things in terms of Gita and Bhagavad. And we'll see that everyone is perfectly situated according to their karma.
I have a follow-up to that. I was getting scared. I was thinking last night we had 750,000 people in the streets, and everybody's walking around with this mentality, You're just meeting people or seeing things according to their perception. It's kind of like a very fragile situation we're living in.
That's why the Bhagavatam says, Padam Padam Yadvipatam Natesham. At every step there's danger. Because people can just fly off the handle when you least expect it. How many times did I have people throw beer bottles, beer cans, rocks, bricks, in different times when I was doing Harinam or preaching? One man hit me in the face when I was trying to give him a magazine. So these things happen. But actually, it was very educational. Any other question, comments?
Does anybody in the chat have a question? We've got 11 live streaming viewers. Daniel here from Dallas, Texas. It's his birthday, and he says hello to everybody in the chat. Anybody have a question? If not, we can, I guess, conclude. Oh, Jai Gauranga has a question.
Maharaj, what would be the most important thing for a person that just is starting Krishna consciousness?
The most important thing? Chant. Srila Prabhupada said, first let people feel the happiness of chanting, then they can worry about the rules and regulations. Of course, if you feel happiness with chanting, then you should start thinking about the rules and regulations. Not think, I want a little more happiness before I follow the rules and regulations. But yeah, the most important thing is to understand that chanting the holy name of Krishna and chanting it properly. In the beginning, someone may not be chanting properly or not have the proper consciousness, but we should always be trying to improve it. Just like if you start playing the piano and you learn one tune, that doesn't mean that you're an accomplished musician. Because I studied the piano when I was 5 years old. I still remember one tune, but it doesn't mean that I can go on and do a concert, But so someone who's new, try to hear Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and understand many things that are there may not be possible for me at this point in time, but it will be. Everything that's there is possible for anyone. It's just a question of getting to that point. And you can see the benefit when you see, especially in the Bhagavatam, if you do this, you will be liberated. If you do this, you will be eternally happy. So, if you see those things, then it becomes, okay, it may be a challenge, but I want to be eternally happy. Therefore, let me continue my Krishna consciousness. But for a new person, of course, what does it mean to be new? No. I mean, how many years is new? Where does new stop and be? if we consider how long I've been in this world, we're all very new. How many lifetimes, we're all very, very new. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, generally speaking, if you practice Krishna consciousness every day without fail for 20 years, then you can come to the stage of Artha Pravriti, which means that otherwise the very positive spiritual impulses will automatically come because you've been practicing like that for 20 years without fail every day. Generally speaking, it's not guaranteed. And sometimes it's difficult for us to practice one day being fully Krishna conscious. We come in and out, into focus, out of focus, into focus, out of focus. But Lord Chaitanya would also do that. He would be in pure external consciousness or pure internal consciousness. And with us, it's just being in some kind of Krishna consciousness and being in functional consciousness. We can go in and out. But if we remain convinced, just like one person told me, I don't think this process is working for me. And I said, I don't think you're working for this process. So, okay. Hare Krishna.
Would you like to do a little kirtan, 5-minute kirtan?
We could do that, yeah.
We'll do a little chanting. Get the harmonium. And then I guess. I also want to just thank everybody for yesterday coming, volunteering, taking the time to join us. We've already got a bunch of devotees that are ready to come down next year and make it bigger and better. But I think we had a really nice start. We were on the TV, it was colorful, it's really sweet. So I hope y'all can join us again. We have a festival in July. That's our next one. It's a Kirtan festival. So everybody's welcome.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Krishna Vinay. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prasad Jai Shri Krishna Jai Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Jai Gaura Hari Jai Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada.